Okay. We have a question. Why did America change so dramatically during the 1920s? When we think about changes that happen in society, we tend to focus on the behaviors themselves rather than what makes our behaviors change. American culture changed because of the dramatic innovations which occurred during the 1920s. Firstly, rapid economic growth. Secondly, rise in mass media, and finally, the technological innovation in America during the 1920s. Okay. In the late 1920s, the store market bubble emerged. This bubble was a long period of success and led to many Americans to have a decrease in vigilance. The stock market kept increasing until people became irrationally hopeful, leading them to buy stocks without thinking. So, as humans, we tend to, when things go our way, we tend to stop thinking rationally and double checking ourselves since we're thinking, well, it's going good so well, or so far, it's just going to keep on rising, which that rarely happens, and that is when a lot of Americans make mistakes because they think their lives are just going to get better, but sooner or later something bad's going to happen, and they are going to lose it all in that one investment. And before the bubble, which ended in the 1920s boom, America was on the verge of becoming the most powerful country in the world. The rise of automobile oil consumption skyrocketed. So this is what everyone was doing in the stock markets on oil and cars and all these new innovations. This increasing demand led to a massive increase in America's fossil fuel industry. Before fossil fuels. So before Los Angeles was famous for film productions, it was providing 25% of the world's oil, which aided to growth in America. So nowadays, people don't really remember that Los Angeles was such a big impact on America, not only nowadays for Hollywood, but because of the oil. And now there's still oil rigs that are pumping oil out of the ground and covered up because it's kind of an eyesore to see in such a big city like Los Angeles. Secondly, mass media. For the first time in history, America was united by a single media culture, which was music. Richard Middleton says the availability of inexpensive, widely available sheet music versions of popular songs and instrumental music Percy's made it possible for music to be disseminated to a wide audience of amateur middle-class music makers. An early music sensation was jazz music. In the beginning, jazz had a bad connotation of drinking, gambling, and other bad behaviors, but as time went on, jazz lost its problematic connections and widely spread through the middle class of Americans. So everyone was dancing to this new hip type of music, and it originated from Africa, and so nowadays we have like the blues and a lot of songs and remix of songs nowadays from the jazz era. And then thirdly, technology. A few huge innovations in the 1920s were cars and cooking tools. Now that cars were becoming more widespread and inexpensive, people were able to go farther distances and faster with these new automobiles. People were now able to go cross-country or even able to get a job in the next town over with just a 20-minute drive. So that made it easier on the working man or working person to just hop in their car and go across town to a different town and work instead of having to take a long hour or so walk. The car made it much faster, of course. And then kitchen technologies changed the human experience. Before the 19th century, cooking was an all-day process lasting 6 to 7 hours of preparation a day. Nowadays, cooking on average takes 37 minutes. These changes happened because we were figuring out faster processes of cooking, so we weren't, going into our farm, pulling the plants or vegetables that we're going to use in our stew. We could go to grocery stores and get the food there, and then come home, quickly boil it or prepare it, and it's a much faster and easier process nowadays. So this is how the 1920s dramatically changed America.